Welcome to BBTV Intelligence Briefing. Today's question: how can the most famous Special Operations Unit in the American military be one the US government has never officially admitted exists? No press release created it. No public roster lists it. And for almost 50 years, no US official has ever said its name in an official capacity. Everyone has heard of Delta Force. It's in movies, video games, recruiting rumors, and 100 documentaries. Ask almost anyone to name a US Special Operations Unit, and this is usually the first one they think of. But search the Department of Defense's official structure, and you won't find it. Not in the Army's public order of battle, not in a single unclassified budget line, not in a press release, a change of command ceremony announcement, or a public unit history. The unit's actual designation, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment-Delta, barely appears anywhere in public government records at all, and when it does, it's almost always in a footnote or a court filing rather than an official acknowledgement. This isn't an oversight, and it isn't an accident of paperwork. It's policy, applied consistently for almost 50 years. The US government has never formally confirmed the unit operates under that name, and officials asked directly about it in press briefings are trained to give one of a handful of scripted non-answers, never a yes and never quite a no. By the end of this briefing, you'll understand exactly how a unit this famous stays this invisible on paper, who benefits from that invisibility, and why the entire structure exists on purpose rather than by neglect. So here's what's actually confirmed and what isn't. Delta Force is real. Its actual designation is 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment-Delta, shortened to 1st sfod-d. It's based at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, formerly Fort Bragg, and it falls under Joint Special Operations Command, the classified headquarters that also oversees the Navy's equivalent unit, commonly known publicly by a nickname rather than its official title. What's not confirmed officially is almost everything else: troop strength, squadron structure, current selection criteria, the identity of the current commander. None of it appears in a public Army organizational chart. None of it is published in a congressional record available to ordinary citizens, and none of it shows up in the Pentagon's public budget justification documents under any recognizable name. When journalists ask the Pentagon to confirm operational details, the standard response is a version of the same phrase, repeated for decades across multiple administrations, regardless of party. The department does not discuss the specifics of special mission units. That phrase, special mission unit, is itself the closest thing to an official acknowledgement the public ever gets. It's a category, not a name, a legal and administrative label that lets officials talk about a class of units without confirming any one of them by its actual designation. Compare that to a conventional Army division. Its commander is publicly named. Its base is publicly listed. Its rough troop strength is a matter of public record, and its budget appears in some form in documents Congress votes on in open session. None of that applies here, and it hasn't applied for the unit's entire existence. To understand why it works this way, you have to go back to 1977. Colonel Charlie Beckwith had served an exchange tour with the British Special Air Service in the 1960s and came home convinced America needed something similar. A small, elite, direct-action counter-terrorism unit built for hostage rescue and high-risk missions the conventional military simply wasn't structured or trained for. He spent years lobbying a skeptical Army bureaucracy to let him create it, facing repeated pushback from commanders who saw no need for a unit like it. In November 1977, after years of arguing his case, Delta Force was formally activated at Fort Bragg. Its first major test came less than 3 years later, in April 1980, Operation Eagle Claw, the attempt to rescue 52 American hostages held inside the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. The mission failed before Delta operators ever reached the embassy grounds, undone by a string of helicopter mechanical failures in the Iranian desert and a fatal collision between a helicopter and a transport aircraft during the withdrawal, which killed 8 American servicemen. It was broadcast to the world as a national humiliation, and it became the direct catalyst for rebuilding American special operations from the ground up. Out of that failure came years of internal reform, culminating in the Nunn-Cohen Amendment in 1986, which created U.S. Special Operations Command as a unified command with its own budget authority, and formally established Joint Special Operations Command as the classified headquarters overseeing units like Delta. The lesson Washington drew from Eagle Claw wasn't simply improve coordination. It was closer to compartmentalize these units so tightly that failures, successes, and even basic existence stay off the public record wherever legally possible. A lesson that has shaped the unit's public posture ever since. Delta went on to deploy in Grenada in 1983, Panama in 1989, and Somalia in 1993, where operators were caught in the prolonged urban battle later depicted in the film Black Hawk Down. Through all of it, across 6 different presidential administrations, the Pentagon's public posture barely changed, acknowledged in the vaguest terms that U.S. Special Operations Forces were involved in a given action, and declined to say anything more specific about which unit, how many personnel, or under what rules of engagement. Here's the part most coverage of Delta Force misses. The secrecy isn't an accident of bureaucracy. It's a deliberate legal and administrative structure built to serve a specific strategic purpose. Officially non-acknowledged units solve a real problem for policymakers. They let the government conduct extremely sensitive missions without the full political exposure of a formal, publicly attributed military operation. If a unit's existence is never officially confirmed, its operations can be described in the vaguest possible terms or not described at all. That gives the White House and the Pentagon room to conduct high-risk missions in politically sensitive countries, sometimes countries the United States isn't formally at war with, without triggering the same level of congressional notification and open public debate a conventional deployment would automatically require. It also protects operators directly, not just politically, but personally. Personnel assigned to Delta are typically carried on the books under other, more generic unit designations for pay, promotion, and administrative purposes throughout their careers. Their actual assignment doesn't appear in any public record that a hostile intelligence service, a criminal organization, or a hostage taker could use to identify them, track their movements, or target their families back home. This structure isn't unique to America, and that matters because it suggests something structural rather than a peculiarly American taste for secrecy. Britain's Special Air Service operates under decades of nearly identical ambiguity, with the British government following its own long-standing policy of neither confirming nor denying SAS involvement in specific operations. Russia's Alpha Group and other Spetsnaz elements follow the same broad logic, as do equivalent units in Israel, France, and elsewhere. Nearly every serious military power has arrived at the same conclusion independently, without coordinating with each other. The units doing the most politically sensitive work benefit strategically from formally not existing. This is where it gets interesting, the part that connects the secrecy to the money, the oversight, and the accountability question nobody quite has an answer for. Funding. Delta's budget isn't a visible line item anywhere in public federal spending documents. It's folded into broader classified special operations and intelligence funding pools, reviewed in closed session by a small number of congressional members who sit on relevant defense and intelligence committees, rather than debated on the floor the way conventional force spending is. Oversight. That congressional review is real, not fictional. It isn't a total absence of accountability, but it's extremely narrow. A handful of lawmakers with the necessary security clearances see classified budget detail behind closed doors. The broader public, and even most of Congress itself, sees nothing at all. Defenders of the system call this necessary compartmentalization, arguing that wider disclosure would hand adversaries a roadmap. Critics call it a structural accountability gap, since the normal mechanisms of press scrutiny, public debate, and broad legislative oversight simply don't reach this part of the government. Operations, confirmed missions attributed to Delta, or more often to unnamed, unspecified special operations forces, include the 2003 operation that led to the capture of Saddam Hussein near Tikrit, and the 2019 raid that killed Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in Syria. In both cases, the White House confirmed the outcome publicly, in the second case even releasing a limited operational summary, while the Pentagon still declined to confirm which specific unit executed the mission on the ground. Precedent. Every year this arrangement holds without a major public scandal, reinforces it further as the template for future compartmented programs. The less controversy the model generates, the less political pressure there ever is to change it, and the more attractive it becomes as a blueprint for other sensitive capabilities. In a very real sense, the secrecy sustains itself simply by continuing to work without incident. Put together, this is the hidden layer, not a secret unit hiding from enemies, but a compartmented funding and reporting structure, hiding from ordinary public and legislative visibility, by design, with the enemy's ignorance as a secondary benefit, rather than the primary goal. This isn't just a story about one unit, it's a preview of where a growing share of military power is heading. As geopolitical competition intensifies with states like China and Russia, and as conflicts increasingly play out below the threshold of open war, US defense planners have leaned harder on exactly this kind of compartmented, deniable capability. Units and programs that can act quickly, with minimal public debate, and with built-in insulation from political blowback if something goes wrong. Delta's model isn't treated as an exception anymore inside the defense establishment. It's increasingly the template being extended outward into cyber operations, certain intelligence military hybrid programs, and a new generation of special mission units still being stood up today. That trend raises a genuine, unresolved tension for a democracy. The public broadly accepts that some military capability needs to stay classified for operational security, and few people seriously argue Delta's roster should be published. But the more capability moves into unacknowledged, compartmented structures, the less of the defense budget and the fewer of the decisions made with that budget are ever available for the ordinary democratic check of public and congressional debate. That's not a hypothetical concern. It's the direct, structural trade-off this entire model runs on. What's certain is this: Delta Force will keep operating almost exactly as it has for nearly 50 years, officially unconfirmed and unofficially one of the most famous military units on the planet. The structure that makes that contradiction possible isn't going anywhere soon. If anything, it's the model the rest of the system is quietly being built to resemble. Delta Force isn't hiding from the enemy. It's operating inside a structure specifically designed to stay off the public record, And that structure is spreading, not shrinking. This has been BBTV Intelligence Briefing. Stay sharp.